Hello everybody, Carbon here again. Just a relatively short video just to cover a few points on the Hypagasm. If you've seen the first video, I hope you found it mind-blowing. Most people do, and yes, it's real. It's a real phenomenon, and it's hard to believe people haven't discovered this before, but they haven't. Anyway, if you look to the left of me now on the screen, you'll see two graphs. The top graph is a graph of the build-up, the actual sexual build-up to a hypagasm. And as you can see, it goes up quite exponentially. As soon as it kicks in, it can get quite severe quickly. And then the man reaches a point which I call the erotic sweet spot, at which point tensing the muscles will activate a climax. The graph underneath it actually shows you the profile of a hypagasm. And you can see there are a number of different steps going on as you go through the first part. So it's usually about 60 seconds the first part. Bear in mind a typical male climax is between 6 and 10 seconds. And the intensity is pitiful. I mean, most men will go, maybe, if they're lucky. And there are reasons why the classical male climax is really rubbish. This is a different ballpark altogether, and it's been difficult for me to find a way of measuring the actual intensity of it. It's very difficult it's not so easy to say, oh, it's 10 times better than normal, because normal's all over the place. So it's very, very difficult indeed to actually do that. But I assure you, compared to normal, it's a lot more intense, as you can see in the video. And so you can see the different steps as you go down, the wincing that takes place, the neurosurges in the body, the microjolts that start with the head moving backwards and forwards. All of these things are there. And you can see eventually then it goes down to a plateau and you go into the refractory area, refractory phase, where you feel incredibly high and relaxed. And that phase can last for a very long time, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever you want. If you've had enough after 5 minutes, okay, you just open your eyes and you'll come out of the whole thing. As long as you keep them closed, you'll carry on having microjolts, and you have something called shunting, which is a very pleasant sensation downstairs that's like a continuous release. It's dead weird, and it just keeps going and going and going and going. That feels really nice, and you feel so high and relaxed that obviously you are very touchy and jumpy, and that's why you have the microjolts. Anyway, but it's utterly mind-blowing, and then as you come into that, you can see the spikes start appearing periodically. And the microjolts tend to happen if you can hear something outside, like somebody click the finger, like that. It would give you a microjolt. So the slightest little noise, microjolt. And that's how it sort of works. Sometimes there doesn't have to be a noise. You're just so incredibly relaxed and so incredibly in tune with your environment that anything can sort of bring it about. So that's a representation of that experience, but it's very difficult. Again, as a scientist, it's really hard. How do you make measurements like this? I mean, do we use vocal intensity? Is that how we measure it? I don't know, it's not easy. Anyway, that was the first thing to say. Second thing is this. There is a huge twist to the story. I am about as sexually dead as a man could ever be. I've been this way for decades. It first started when I was given psychotropic medication to treat a mental health condition in my mid-20s, and it was almost like flicking a switch. Suddenly I just had no drive. And for the last few decades, I've actually been struggling in that way enormously. So for a man who's discovered this, the hypagasm, it's a pretty bizarre state of affairs that it's really not a great deal of use to me. It takes such a lot of effort for me to get in the mood to actually react in that way. And it's very hard work, very tough indeed. I was under a urologist for 2 years. They couldn't do anything. They tried everything in sight, drugs, scans, blood tests, all sorts of things like that. And nothing really took us anywhere. Anyway, that was a disaster. I've also had a lot of operations downstairs. I've been injured downstairs a number of times in my life and had lots of trouble. So that area of my body I associate with pain more than pleasure. So I'm in a difficult situation. So unfortunately for me, this is something that doesn't happen very often, because when it does, it's something I have to work very hard at. Very, very difficult for me. So yeah, so that was the first video. So I hope people, could understand the difference by watching that. I think the overall recording was 4.5 minutes, 5 minutes, and that's cutting it short. So anyway, so for any of the guys out there, you probably don't have the problems I have, and so this is just wonderful. I mean, you should be able to have level 3 mind bombs, the most intense version of this. every single time you have a climax. And you can have, if you are able to have multiple climaxes in a day, they can all be hypergasmic climaxes. That's how powerful it is. And sometimes the ones further down the line are better than the first one. Amazingly enough, you get an almost dry hypergasm that feels even better than it does normally. It's extraordinary, really. Anyway, there we go. So yeah, so I actually have no drive for this at all. It's not much use to me whatsoever, so heartbreaking. And then I want to say, ladies, I'm afraid I don't think this will work for you. I could only hope and dream that it would, but I'm absolutely convinced it certainly won't. I'm afraid I think this is another one the men are going to enjoy and women might not really know anything about it. Anyway, sad, very sad. Anyway, there we go. So a little bit of an update. The twist in the story is the guy who predicted it and discovered it doesn't really use it, because it's not much use to him, because he just doesn't have that kind of drive and he wishes he did. So everybody else out there, you've got to knock yourself down with this and enjoy it. Be careful though. As you can see in the video, it's very intense, very severe. If you've got any medical problems at all, especially physical problems, problems with circulation, problems with your head, go and see your doctor. You have to take responsibility if you're going to try and use this method. I'm trying to be as clear as I can about how this works and that it's very severe. You know, sometimes you can pull muscles because your muscles tense up really tightly, and you can pull muscles. I've done it in my sides long time ago, but you can. So you got to be careful. And obviously the vocalization as well, you're not aware of that either. So the swearing, the profanity, you just don't know you've said any of the things you've said. It's baffling, but you don't. So, you know, you need somewhere very quiet, very private, and very safe. So please, do everything you can do to get yourself checked out and do this properly and safely. We don't want anybody having accidents, okay? And finally, to get the book, and whoo, throwing it up the room. Page 1, Life in the Fast Lane. And that's what it is, living like this. The hypergasm is life in the fast lane. So guys, get to carbonbooks.net, pick a copy up, find out how to do it, and then make 2020 a sexual revolution for the world. Let's bring back peace and love through the hypergasm and many other things besides. So go for it. Sort it out. It's dead easy to do. You can do them every time. Might bring many relationships to life again. And I think women are going to find this absolutely fascinating when their partner is able to have one of these and they can help generate one. I think they'll find it absolutely fascinating. So go on out there, 2020, sexual revolution all over the world. Sod war, sod all the falling out over all the crap we've got to deal with. Let's get to this and let's get down to some serious hedonistic pleasures. I think it's wrong not to. So take care everybody and wait for the next video.